Hello, I'm Eric Kimball. It is early spring here in upstate New York. The sun is starting to peek out on this overcast morning, and I am going to give you an update now on the Minibed experimental garden, which you can see right here behind me. I have been experimenting in this garden with this gardening concept, the Minibed gardening concept, now for 4 growing seasons. This is an idea that at this point has been tried and not found wanting at all. It is a remarkable gardening system. I have been gardening since I was 16 years old, and I'm 63 now. So that's a long time. I've tried so many different gardening ideas and concepts, and finally I came up with my own, and I couldn't be more pleased. So what I'm going to do is give an update here, and hear the goose? 2 of them. Yeah. Ever since starting this experimental garden, I have put together a yearly report in the spring detailing what I learned the previous growing season. And those reports are all compiled into a trilogy that is available at planetwhizbang.com if you're interested. This year, I don't have a report with details and pictures because I pretty much have covered the concept in those previous reports. So this video is a substitute for the yearly report. I'm going to give you an update on the condition of the polyethylene mulch after 4.5 years of continuous exposure to the sunlight and walking on it and all of that. And I'm going to give you an update on the condition of the wood Minibed frames, and then I'm going to give you several bits of information that I think will be helpful to you if you want to try this idea, or if you are one of the ones who are already trying this idea. It's exciting. It's exciting to anticipate the year ahead, the growing season ahead. I have my fork here, which is all you need, and even that you don't need to Minibed garden. I don't need a rototiller every spring. The beds are essentially ready, and with minimal preparation, they're ready to plant. And I've planted a bunch of stuff here. Without further ado, let's start this tour. I'm going to begin over at my garden shed. Okay, this is my garden shed right here, right at the entrance to the garden. And if you have my Planet Whiz Bang idea book for gardeners, you know all about my garden shed, the garden shed idea. Now, this garden shed had a propensity for the door to flop open and stay open. So I rigged up this little system right here, and that has been working very well. Well, anyway, let me just show you what is in my garden shed. I've cleaned it out recently. This year, my garden shed is going to be clean all year long, not stuffed full of junk like it was last year and all through the winter. It's going to be clean because I'm using the minimalist approach. I only have 3 tools in here, starting with the dibble. Right here, this is a vintage Brookstone dibble. I love dibbles. My son bought this for me at a thrift store, and if I didn't have this dibble, I would have another kind of dibble, because when it comes to Minibed gardening, dibbles, or a dibble, comes in very handy. The other tool I have in here is, of course, my Whiz Bang pocket cultivator. This is a great Minibed gardening tool. I have a video about it. I'll put a link below. It is indispensable, in my opinion. And since I'm going to the garden, I'll put this in my pocket. The other tool I have, and the only other tool I have, the last tool I have, is the pocket seeder, the Whiz Bang pocket seeder, which is for accurately and easily planting small seeds. So I'll keep that in there. Place for everything in its place. It's a great concept if you can make it work. Now let's take a look at the plastic. So the plastic here, the plastic I recommend is the 6mm bunker cover plastic. It is UV resistant. It's not supposed to break down. And in fact, after 4.5 years, it has not broken down. No indication anywhere that this plastic it has broken down from the sunlight on it. There is an occasional hole here and there where a weed will grow up, and I'll just pull it out. And those holes have come from me doing physical damage. There is also damage from my dog. See that? My dog did that. My dogs dug it up, and the dog did it there. And I'll show you an even worse section. Look at that. If that's not discouraging, I don't know what is. The darn dog was trying to get at mice nests. So I'll have to repair that, take time to repair that, and I really think the dog needs to go. Okay, right here, I want to show you how and where I have fixed dog damage. And it's just a piece of the material I put in there. I put these little U-pins in, pounded them in, folded the edge over so it's a double thickness around the perimeter, and I patched it. I think that's going to be fine. It's just powerfully discouraging when your dog tears up your Minibed garden plastic. You can see that's a garlic bed. I've successfully grown garlic here with a 13-spot planting template. I have videos about that. That garlic was planted last fall and covered with leaf mulch, and I just took off the leaf mulch so the garlic could jump up like it has right there. It's grown, and I'll put the leaf mulch back around. But what I'm going to do is sprinkle some pelletized poultry manure on top of the soil before I put the mulch back on. And I have a whole row of the garlics, 13 to a bed, and I've got 9 beds down through here. Every garlic sprouted, and so we should have a good harvest of garlic. Garlic's pretty easy to grow. You know that if you've grown it. Problem free. You know, I planted it. I'm going to put the mulch back on those beds, and they'll be all set till harvest time. Now, I need to say, or reiterate for those who aren't aware of it, that 78% of this garden area is covered with the plastic mulch. This is a polyethylene mulch, polyethylene plastic. People question the safety of polyethylene plastic for food. Doesn't that leach? And no, I don't think it does. It's okay. It's approved for organic. If you buy organic food in the store, it was probably grown with the help of polyethylene mulch. It's got a long history. I discuss polyethylene and its safety at length in my Minibed gardening report. So let me show you here another kind of plastic. This is the Billboard Plastic, which is not polyethylene. You can see where I've overlapped the polyethylene and used the pins, folded it over so that I've got a double thickness, and I've tried here a small section of the Billboard Plastic. Billboard Plastic is PVC. That is not approved for organic use, PVC mulches. PVC may be problematic, but a lot of people are using Billboard Plastic. I don't recommend it, even though I have it here in the garden. It is pretty tough stuff. So far it's held up. It hasn't been here 4.5 years like the main part of the garden over here where we're looking, and time will tell how well it holds up. I think the polyethylene though, this UV resistant 6 mil, is going to last much more than the 5 years I hoped that I would get out of it, as long as the dog doesn't destroy it. I want to show you a few more things here. You may notice that I don't have cover crops growing here. I usually have the rye cover crop in all the beds that weren't planted to something in the fall. I love the rye. I didn't get to it. Didn't get to it last year. I was so busy. The garden got a little bit overgrown, and it was not very pretty looking. It was productive. My wife was out here every day during the growing season, getting food and making great meals with it. This is not a survival garden concept. This is a quality of life garden. I want to emphasize that. Quality of life garden. You come out into your garden and you work in it. It's not overwhelming. And being in the sunshine, it's a quality of life. Being in the sunshine and the fresh air and working in your garden. And there's an aspect to the quality of life that comes from the satisfaction that you get growing in manageable mini beds. So you have quality of life there. And then the third aspect to this quality of life garden is the food. It's a kitchen garden. And although I've got enough garlic to last a year, and I also have enough onions planted to last a year, I'm going to show you that in a minute. But it's really a quality of life kitchen garden. We love the fresh food. And so you've got the satisfaction, you've got the recreational, stress-reducing, healthful aspects of working in the garden without the frustration that often comes with gardening. And you've got the food itself. Let me show you that I have planted some things already here in the spring. I've got a whole row of peas. I planted 3 kinds of peas right down through there, and the first row. And I want to show you the garden, the stake that I have there. Now, spring blush snap pea, it grows taller than those other peas, so I have a tomato cage here. And those stakes are the no-fade stakes that I have showed how to make in a YouTube video. They are remarkable, and as I was cleaning the beds out here and getting ready for planting, I found a bunch of stakes that have been here a whole year in the garden, exposed to the weather, and I'll show them to you now. So here we are. A whole year outside. The stake itself has faded, but the writing has not. All of these are still clearly readable, and that idea that I share in the video, I'll put a link below, it's the solution to fading stakes in the garden. Absolutely amazing that does not fade at all. Absolutely amazing. Zephyr squash. I love my zephyr squash. Now, one of my improvements this year is right over there. You can see the tire sidewalls holding down some 6mm plastic. That plastic was in another part of my garden. When I was growing the hemp, I used that, and the hemp idea got cut short, but the plastic I saved, and that section of garden was where my wife had her blueberries, and they did not do well for us. They did not do well for her. It was quite overgrown, and I have covered that. So I will let that plastic kill off everything underneath it this year, and I'll extend the mini bed garden over onto that next year. Now, let me show you something pretty neat. Speaking of tire sidewalls, I did not get the beds planted to a cover crop last year, but what I did was I covered a lot of beds with leaves, and I got rid of my mechanical mulching machine that I featured in a previous video. It did a great job mulching leaves, but it was just another thing to take care of and have around. So what I did to shred leaves was I just ran over piles of leaves in my lawn with the garden like 5 or 6 times, and they shredded up fairly well. And I put them on a whole row of mini beds down through here. I put a cat excluder wire over it. You know about the cat excluder if you're familiar with this system. And then I put a tire sidewall on top. And this mini bed was piled up with the leaves when I did that in the fall, and now it's all settled down, and that provided a wonderful environment under those leaves for the worms and other critters. And I'm going to set this camera on a tripod and we'll take a look underneath that nice leaf mulch. All right, this leaf mulch will get used and I just toss it onto the plastic, and I'll pick it up later. But you can see the soil underneath is moist and soft. See that beautiful soil? Not dirt, soil. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I'm surprised I'm not seeing a worm. They must be camera shy, right? But yeah, that's a good place to put your leaves. Put them on there. Put a cat excluder hardware cloth down, and a tire sidewall, just kind of to weight it down for the winter. And this bed is ready to plant. I don't need to get my rototiller out. I could crack the soil with a fork, as I explained in the Minibed reports. I think I have a video about it too. But yeah, see that? I love to get my hands in the soil. So I want to say a word about these leaves and all the other debris, vegetative debris that you see on the walkways here. That's there. It's going to be used as mulch. I don't compost any of this stuff. As you may know, if you've watched the videos, I mulch with, well, over here, this is a great example. I cleaned out one of these beds that was overgrown, and I pulled out all this with the roots a couple of weeks ago, and I just threw it on the plastic, and it has dried down and died. And I am going to, got a little newspaper there, I am going to use this as mulch. Same over here. This is mulch that was on a bed last year. It's still good mulch. I got some stalks and roots. That looks like that may have been rye stalks from last year. And I'll use that as mulch. I'll probably use that rough mulch on the garlic over there. So I'll throw the vegetation, the weeds, onto the plastic, let them dry down, use them as mulch in the beds. And I can sweep the plastic off. I will sweep it off, and it'll look a whole lot better later after I've used the mulch. The one mulch I will not use, and this is worth talking about, is right here. This is the rhizomes of, was it quackgrass or crabgrass? Quackgrass, I think. I always get them confused. This wicked grass, which spreads, has not come onto this garden or into this garden from the perimeter until this last year. And the only place I found it is in this bed right here. And when I saw it, I dug out every last bit of it that I could find in that bed. I went deep. The bed was soft. The soil was soft. It was easy in the spring. And I got every last bit of root that I could find. And that's the only spot where that evil weed has come into my garden. And I will not mulch with that because I have this belief that if this gets moisturized in any way in the soil, it's going to come to life and grow some more. So I'll get rid of that far away, very far away. To the left of the garlic row is the onion row. I planted onions yesterday. I planted copra onion plants from Dixondale Farms, and I used the 3x5 planting stick, which is in a previous video. That is a great tool. I've used that here. You can see that what I did was I dibbled each spot with that dibble I showed you earlier, and then I poured a little water in each dibbled spot, and then I set a onion plant in each one, and I used my fingers to press the soil around the plants, and then I took some of the leaf mulch out of another bed and I put it in here around these onions. It gets much harder to add mulch once these onions start growing, so getting some in there now is important, and a little bit of mulch makes a huge difference to the quality of the soil and the micro herd that you want to be so active in your soil. it needs to be covered, natural mulch. And I've got 8 beds, 35 onions to a bed. That's, you do the math, it's 200 and something onions. And that's good. That's a year's supply for my wife and I. Onions do something in the soil that I don't understand. It isn't totally understood. It's recognized but not understood. Onions do something in the soil that is good for the soil and benefits what you plant afterwards. Now there's a lot more that I could say here, but I realize that I have not talked about the condition of these wood frames, and I need to do that. Okay, what we're looking at here is the original section of the mini bed garden, the 4.5-year-old section. And the beds, the wood frames here are therefore 4.5 years old, and they're holding up very well. None have broken. Yes, there's mycelium growing on the undersides when I flip them, and I flip them every time I work the beds. Every time I plant them, I flip them over so that the bottom is up or the up is down, and I think that helps. But in fact, I'll flip one right here so you can see. We'll see the bottom. Flip it over like that, and then I'll work the soil just a little bit, and I'll put it back on here, upside down from what it was. The frames are holding. There's rot here and there. In fact, okay, here's an example. See, I've got some mushroom spore growth here. I think you can see that, and that's to be expected. This is untreated wood. I have screwed the corners with 4-inch screws, if I remember right. Maybe it was 4.5. It's in the report. I didn't want to go with the 3.5s, which tend to be more common. I wanted the longer screw, and I think that has made a difference. They were more expensive, but they've held up well. All of them are still together. There's some more mushroom growing. Yeah. So the frames are holding, and if they start separating and I can't screw them together, I'll put some strapping around the outside to keep them together as long as possible. I think I can easily get the 5 years I was hoping for, and maybe even another 5 years. They just have to serve as a weight on the plastic to keep it from billowing up. We do get some wind here, and it has never billowed up. The frames do what they're designed to do. The system works. It really is something. Okay, I'll cut it off right here. I think I've said enough, introduced you to enough concepts, and given you a updated report here after 4.5 years, heading into the 5th year of growing. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hey, don't you dig in my garden anymore. That's the dog. That's the dog that digs in my garden. You stay out of my garden.